Keir, firstly, thanks for making the time to come and see us as part of this series of collaborations that Mercian Academy are doing with high-class coaching content, digital content deliverers and creators, of which you're one. We go back a long way. The same conversation with Callum. We don't go back as far as Callum and I do, however, we go back a long way. So, first and foremost, goalkeeping, it seems like, for you, is an absolute passion. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep, completely. Obsessed with it. Very, very nerdy, very geeky. Definitely.
That's a word that you've used before.
Yeah.
Which is more of a passion, actual goalkeeping, because you're a goalkeeper of note yourself, or the coaching?
Coaching, definitely. Yeah, so I think I was a decent goalkeeper who probably played in Premier League and played in all the age groups and quite enjoyed that. But actually, I think I'm a better coach, and if I knew then what I know now, it would have been great. But I get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing a young goalkeeper, and especially young goalkeepers, develop, learn, and progress. And we do loads of camps, but the one-to-ones I particularly enjoy. That's where I feel like I'm having most impact, definitely.
Yes, because from a hero perspective, you've worked for other companies in the past, and then you brought this concept to market, for want of a better phrase. What is it? Why does it exist? Why did you create it?
I picked up loads of things from other people, and for example, Maddie Hinch has done amazing things for goalkeeping globally, but especially in this country, in England. I think she had a huge influence on me when I worked with her, and I thought actually I know enough now to take the bits that I've learned from other people, and I wanted to kind of add my own flavour, if you like. I work in school. I've worked in schools for like 24 years, so I wanted to bring kind of a pastoral approach to coaching. So being quite wary of like the mental part of the game. And Hero is, if you've worked with Hero before, you'd know that it's kind of we tried to create like a personal feel to it. So you actually know the coach quite well. You work with the same coaches quite a lot. We always give things like email feedback and talk to parents, and we've got a mindset coach that comes along to every camp now. And we're just trying to make it a bit different and a bit kind of, I suppose, like a personal, friendly feeling. And you can have that at the top level as well. I think, that some people think you've either got to go really serious or like fun, and you can have both. You can have that kind of friendly, supportive network, even at the top level.
Which is it's almost like read my mind in terms of a segue to the question that was to follow, which was sometimes I coach very infrequently, coach goalkeepers very infrequently, and when I do go and coach goalkeepers, there's questions about, when can we play goalie football? When can we roll a tyre across and try and kick into it? And I literally, maybe it's because I'm getting old and grumpy, I kind of go, that's not what I'm here for. There is an entertainment part of courses and things, but at the same time, surely, is it your philosophy that there has to be an intellectual part of things, an educational part of that learning? It's not just about standing goal and let people hit balls at your head.
Yeah. So I get personally a bit frustrated when I scroll through social media and I'm looking at all these different coaching ideas. I think some things are made on social media for social media, like fun content and that kind of engaging, fun style, but actually the nitty-gritty bit of goalkeeping isn't always cool. And actually you've got to find, I think as a coach, you've got to find lots of interesting ways of doing the basics, because that goalkeeping is, although the game's evolved loads, the art of goalkeeping, the skills haven't changed that much. And even when you talk to Hursty, for example, like, the things he coaches and did as a player, goalkeepers still need now. There's all other add-ons and stuff like that, like body shapes and stuff. But I think I like to really work on finding lots of solid ways of doing the boring stuff, basically. And I think goalkeeping, in that sense, hasn't developed too much.
And if we look at trying to get the youngsters in, and all of this content, what we talk about, our Mercian philosophy, as you know, is this whole Genesis, evolution, elite. Everything fits into those three buckets. So if we focus right at youngsters coming into the game, it can be dull. It can be, you're standing at the back, you're a youngster who doesn't necessarily want to run around, but they want to be with your friends. How do you inspire the youngsters to get into it, get involved with it and appreciate it, rather than it being I'm not good somewhere else, so this is where I end up?
Well, I think with Hero, our style is fairly fast and high tempo. And that isn't everyone's cup of tea. I know that for a fact, and people told me that. And as you go higher up, for example, some goalkeepers at top level definitely want to like slow it down and get the technique nailed.
Get old and tired.
But I think keeping it fast tempoed and engaging, and actually as a goalie coach, you've got to be quite creative with like phases of the drill. So having a second phase, third phase, and actually as a coach delivering a session, I think you've always got to have more ideas and plans in your pocket than you're actually going to use. Because sometimes the keepers will nail it really quickly and need to progress and move on. And other times they need to go backwards and just go back to something really more simple. So I think sometimes for coach, any coachship, goalkeeper coaching especially, I think you've got the planning is important. I don't like the idea of just rocking up and winging it. And I do like to really have a plan in place for every session I do.
And I understand that. And just to get in the middle of this, I'm just going to come this way a little bit in your chair, because I was going to knock the thing by that, just come away from the backdrop. I get that completely. However, with the experience that you're developing as an international level coach, it's got to be kind of an 80% plan, because then all of a sudden it's that ability to adapt in a session when somebody, as you say, they nail it. They've sorted the first 30 minutes out in 20 minutes, and you've got a bit of time to take them to the next level. So there has to be that ability to
probably more of a theme.
Yeah.
More of a theme for the session than an actual plan. Mm-hmm. If you're going to get, really, really specific about it. But also, I do love to get the goalkeepers' feedback, and some of the best sessions that I've done where the goalkeeper's really involved in the session and will tell me what they like, what they're struggling with, what's working, what's not working. And having that kind of the best sessions for goalkeepers, I think, have a lot of interaction between coach and goalkeeper. And as you go higher up, high levels, the best goalkeepers, they want to tell you and what they like, and lots of goalkeepers have their own way of learning. Some keepers, even at top level, are still quite visual. I want to like see it. They want like a demonstration. They want a visual idea of what you ask them to do. And other keepers are just want to get on with it and crack on with it. So yeah, it's just got to know your goalkeeper, I guess.
And do you think is the kind of reflection as you progress your coaching career and the company's coaching career? They talk about goalkeepers being crackers, nuts. Goalkeepers, you've got to be a little bit mad to stand in goal. And I understand the sentence, because would you like to stand in goal and let people hit pieces of plastic at your head at 100 miles an hour? Well, and people go, yes, great, particularly when it hits you in the head and goes to the crossbar. But if we come away from that kind of that mad rhetoric, if you like, do you think that goalkeeping, by its nature, because there might be only the occasional physical contact in a game situation, is quite a mental, not academic as such, academic with a small a, but it is a thinking position?
I think, especially now the game's evolved, I think the days of the kamikaze goalie that charges out and is super pumped up, I would say they're kind of not on the way out, but they're definitely less and less. You're seeing less of those. I think as the game's got faster and the ball's off the ground a lot more, and the style in this country, the style has definitely changed. In my opinion, of goalkeeping, you're seeing less keepers charging out, rushing out, and more of that kind of composed style of staying in the goal and not getting overly involved in stuff at the high level. So I think the game's more suited to a calmer, more methodical, good communicator, and you probably don't see as much of that kind of crazy charging out style goalkeeping that we saw when I was growing up in the early 90s, and before that. And I've seen videos of some of the best goalkeepers in the world, like Ronald Jansen, who just was aggressive and but I don't think, and even if you look at Maddie Hinch when they won the gold, her style there was like really aggressive, closing down, getting on top of the striker, smothering everything. And then the follow Olympics I think it was Tokyo, but she played differently. Mm-hmm. I think the game in that space of time changed and it moved on a bit. So I think it's really important for goalkeepers to evolve and tweak their game as well.
And I guess at the moment, if you look at the England and Great Britain men's, you've got those two different styles and two different goalkeepers. So you've got Ollie Payne at the moment, his foot's in a boot because he's had an operation on his foot. And then you've got Mazzarello. Let's look at those two goalkeepers specifically. They almost completely portray those two different styles.
They do. It's really interesting. I think definitely I think Maz, for example, make more of the eye-catching saves where you go, wow, that was incredible. How did he get that? And Ollie Payne, I think, will arguably be more steady, more consistent, even make less mistakes because his style is process driven. And actually, I think for me that's a great style that suits top hockey. I think it's taking away for example, the diving around style. To do that, you've got to see the ball really well and see it early off the stick. There's loads of variable factors with diving around that kind of style where you need lots of things to happen to be able to make that save. Actually, with a more stable, consistent style where you're on your feet and you're stepping and you're using good, quick, basic skills, I think that's even for me, a more consistent sort of method across for example, across the whole league season. That style's not going to give you too much as a striker. Mm-hmm. And I think that I love the diving around stuff as a fan. I love to see it looks great. But for me as a coach, I think that style, it's not wrong. There's no right and wrong in goalkeeping, but I think it arguably is a bit less effective for me.
Okay. I disagree with the right and wrong only as far as it's wrong if you're letting the ball in.
I should. Can I just add a footnote? If you're making a save, who cares?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. There's no right or wrong as
Absolutely.
long as you're saving the ball.
That's it. Yeah. Absolutely.
But going back to what you said about a minute ago, because you brought up one of the goalies that is a hero to a number of people on the Anson, but you talked about being a goalie geek and you love your international goalies.
I do, yeah.
So, go on, give us if you were going to go top three, let's go top three. Can you do top three, maybe a top five? Your kind of historical overview of goalkeepers through the ages.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I'm a big fan of Ronald Janssens. Yeah. I grew up watching him. I watched him play at Milton Keynes when I was a teenager and I met him, shook his hand. I was, as a kind of a crazy teenager, I was kind of inspired by the no arm guards.
He was crazy.
Very loud. He loved arguing with the umpire. Had loads to say, and I was a bit wowed by that as a kid. I still think it's a toss-up between him and Vogels for like the best modern era goalkeeper. You'd be up there size, well, I'd say.
Thank you.
And as a fan, I've always loved watching Kiko Cortez. When he's on his game, very eye-catching, very fun to watch. I love that style. Again, I think now with the game's changed a bit and it's probably a bit less effective. I have to say Ollie Payne, for me, in the modern era, is right up there because of his consistency and that technique. And I've spoken to, top goalkeepers, for example, without name dropping, Permian Blark said to me he loves to watch Ollie Payne and he's tried to pick things from Ollie Payne's game. And he said that to me, to my face. So that was interesting. And Permian Blark, I'd say in the modern era, is a great. Love his. He's underrated because he's an athlete. He's a presence. He's just one of those keepers that loves the pressure, loves the big moments. And yeah, I'll put him right up there.
And moving sort of slightly sideways across the women's game, I know that Hero have a link with Clara Perez. And she, again, you've got a good relationship with her, and she's going to come over on some camps in the summer? Yeah,
so she's coming over for 3 days to work with us. We're going to do a camp in Kent at Ashford Hockey Club, another camp at Southgate, and we're having a day with her, with all our coaches, with her, working with her, learning from her. So that's going to be great. We're looking forward to that. She's actually a really down-to-earth girl, and I really love talking to her. And even last week at Lee Valley, she saw me in the crowd, came over, took 10 minutes out of her warm-up, and I love that humility about her.
And how, in your opinion, does goalkeeping in the men's game and goalkeeping in the women's game differ?
Well, I think corners are massive. I think drag flicking particularly is, in men's hockey, is a game changer. If you're an international keeper and you can't say drag flicks, then you've got a bit of quite a low ceiling, I think. I think as well in women's hockey, there's a lot of baseline work and being, as a female keeper, being really good in the ugly zone, coming off the post, closing down, low blocking, hybrid blocking, getting your body shapes in position and reading of the game, really important. I think partly why Clara is so successful is she's really aggressive. She goes to the ground quite a lot, but because she's decisive and she gets right on top of the play, it works for her. I think in England we'd be saying she probably goes down too quickly, but I think for her it's great, and actually the way she does it is phenomenal. I really like Jess Buchanan as well. I think she's a great athlete. She's got a great eye, great speed. I think she's one to watch definitely in the next couple of years. In the women's game, obviously can't mention women's hockey without Maddie, because Maddie was incredible. Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely she left a big void, and the female keepers now someone's got to grab it and make it their spot. And in the women's section in this country, we've got some great keepers in, like the under-21s, Tilly Woodhead, Mila Welsh. Those in fact, Mila's in seniors. Mila Welsh, Izzy Field. It's incredible keepers in the kind of next bracket down, who I think going to emerge in the next year or so.
And if we look at you just mentioned the physicality and the body shape. I'm a believer that's a huge part to play. I'm also a believer that if you go into a group of junior goalkeepers and you watch the junior goalkeepers, you can almost tell within the first 10, 15 minutes who's going to be good. Not who's going to be great, because there's a whole load of different things that we'll talk about in a minute, but from who's going to be good. Do you think, can you see, I perceive I can, but I don't coach, you do. Do you think you can see the makings of a good goalkeeper pretty quickly at the start of a
Definitely. I reckon in 20 minutes you can see.
What can you see?
Well, I'm always looking for like the quality traits of a goalkeeper, and I'm not even that fussed by the goalkeeper making a save or not. That sounds really weird. I'm looking for a goalkeeper that moves quickly, who reads the game, actually just makes nice, clean decisions, and actually a goalkeeper that like less is more. Clean contact, clearing the circle on their first save or first contact. I like to see that, and a lot of junior keepers will make 3, 4, 5, 6 saves in a row. It looks great, but they're not being effective with their first save. And I think something I do a lot of work with young keepers on is actually making your first contact effective and with drive and with power to basically reduce the second or third phases.
And how? What are the messages that you're trying to instill in those first-time goalkeepers? Because if I'm looking at that Genesis level, we try and create equipment that goes with that Genesis level, because we want stuff that's protective. We want it to give the goalkeepers confidence, because we want them to feel they are protected. They're almost invincible to some degree, and they can move quickly within it. So, what are you trying to impart to those youngsters?
If you strip it back, what I probably should have said is what I really look for is can a goalkeeper set well?
Okay.
Because that is the most important part of goalkeeping, and it always gets forgotten about because it's not cool and trendy. Getting set means you can move powerfully and drive off and attack the ball with your save. So many keepers, especially young goalkeepers, are bouncing around. They're on the move. They're twitching. They're not still. So that influences how they can actually push off and move to make the save. And I think setting, if any coaches listening or watching, that's the one thing I love to do in every single session. Just something simple as getting the goalkeeper to move into the save and set and save, rather than just standing and starting in that static position. So every ball, it needs a movement and a set, and videoing and showing goalkeepers like this is you twitching around and moving, or bouncing like a football goalkeeper, and actually trying to get that set right. If you set right and you're watching the ball and you're exploding and with nice bent knees and you're driving towards the ball, normally I call it a tick box system. So if you're set with your hands up and your eyes on the ball, those 3 things alone can connect and result in a consistent level of performance.
Yeah, there's been a number of studies about actually goalkeepers are not, when they are unsuccessful, not looking at the ball, the kind of moves. So if we visualise you're standing on your post as a right wing attack that's coming down, we're looking at the baseline and the field is over here towards the camera, then the movement occurs, but the head doesn't move quickly enough, and there's no focus on the ball. So the whole vision, focus, eye training, etc., in my opinion, is it as important as the actual ability to just move?
It's interesting. I think the problem with, or the common misconception with junior goalkeepers, they set as a shot's being taken, and then the ball's already on its way. So now the ball's coming towards me, and I'm not quite where I want to be. So, it's something we do a lot of work on with competent youngsters, and not beginners, but competent youngsters, Genesis level goalkeepers. We look at like the visual cues when watching that shot materialise, and either the back screen coming up or the player addressing the ball and looking at the actual where is the point to set. Mm-hmm. I think once a goalkeeper nails that part, that just everything can fall into place.
So they get an understanding of where in the goal they need to be, and how. There's a lot of coaches who talk about core strength and for goalkeepers, therefore, it's kind of that down the spine and across the middle that then holds all the limbs in place.
Yeah. My style is more so. I'd say with Hero, our style is more like we call it game scenarios. So we won't do too many drills as such with loads of cones and loads of equipment. We always try and look at like match-like scenarios. For example, ball in the baseline. There's this, or this is more than likely going to happen, and your choices are this, this, and this. And the skill is to actually execute the right save technique in that situation. So stuff like being on the post. In the modern game, goalkeepers are now dropping their stick to the end and extending their stick reach. Open position on the post, not moving laterally across the goal line. There's loads of little elements like that. You know, on the baseline, if a player's coming down the baseline with the ball, when they go past your short corner injection line, you're set and coiled. If the ball carrier goes past the 5-yard dash, often that's a really good trigger point for a junior goalkeeper to go and be hard and aggressive in that movement. Same with moving around the goal, using the penalty spot as a compass, knowing where you are and getting your bearings by the penalty spot. A lot of junior keepers get a bit lost when they get north of the penalty spot because they lose that reference point. So we do quite like to give the goalkeeper loads of little hacks, about, for example, starting position. If you're watching the game really carefully and you're calling your defence and your team turn the ball over, you've got to advance your starting position, get yourself high, get your stick dropped to a maximum like 1-on-1 reach. And our style is giving goalkeepers all these little hacks for those situations, and they go away with lots of little tricks and hacks they're going to help them.
And those hacks, as you call them, one of the things you just mentioned was about if they're starting position and they're talking to the defence. I see quite a lot of goalkeepers, when they are disengaged, become even more disengaged. The old school of it's a horrible day and they're sitting on the backboard. That has to be a disadvantage, both in terms of how high you can be in the circle, but also even communication distance. You're removing yourself from the ability to have a sensible level of conversation with the defenders in front of you, and you're suddenly either screaming or saying nothing. And actually, the communication skills of a goalkeeper have to be at least relevant, if not important.
I love to promote preventative goalkeeping. And actually, if you're getting loads of shots, that might mean, although you made loads of good saves, it might mean the communication wasn't really there. Okay, so if we're not touching the ball and defence are all in place, that's great. And actually, that should be coached as part of goalkeeping. Not, that's rubbish, didn't touch the ball. Actually, let's flip it around and make it positive. You and your defence were so switched on and so collaborative that they couldn't get through. And actually, that's a really important part of goalkeeping. Embrace the boredom, if you like, and actually... Again, another little hack. If you're a junior goalkeeper, we don't want left and right fullback going up at the same time, invariably. So if right is up, bring left round and cover. So all those little hacks for goalkeepers that are going to help them keep clean sheets and prevent loads of shots.
So you're actually asking the goalkeepers to understand the tactical framework of the field play that's in front of them.
Really important, especially when they get a bit higher up. Are you playing zone? Are you playing man-to-man? You'll make sure you know that because you've got to call people to the right positions. And, the classic one is where coaches call the team in and the goalie is back there in the D. And actually, that should always be, keeper's got to be in that huddle, absorbing information, hearing what's going on, because they're part of the team as well.
So, really important from a junior perspective. But moments ago, you were talking about coming off the post and goalkeepers sometimes dropping their stick. Let's jump to the other end of that performance spectrum into elite level when the one reason goalkeepers drop their stick is shootouts.
Yep.
Brilliant thing. I never did it. I've watched a lot of it in the last several years in my other role from a commentary position, but that I love because I think it gives goalkeepers a far greater impact on that end of time shootout lottery rather than the old school penalty stroke, which was really hard for goalkeepers. So, A, is it something that you think is a great addition to the game because of how goalkeepers can impact on it? And then B, what hacks have you got for that?
Yes, I love it. I think it's great. I think it adds a bit of spice for the crowd at the end of the game. It's also it's made goalkeeping really interesting, so especially for selection, because some keepers excel at shootouts and other keepers just don't look comfortable with it. And if you're a goalkeeper that's fast, agile, good on the ground, then you love it. People like Permin Blark, you can see he lives for it. He just loves the adrenaline and that one-to-one, like head-to-head battle. So I love it. Yeah. In terms of technical stuff, something I worked with some goalkeepers recently on was trying to break the 8 seconds into 2 sets of 4. So if we can delay and hassle and kill time and what they call disrupting with the stick, getting the player to get his eyes down or her eyes down, then it's all about time. And as that time starts ticking on, the execution of the striker is less likely to be on point. So it's really about how much time can we waste and delay and hold up in that first part, and then effectively, can we force a striker to rush and panic in that last part of the 8 seconds, which I do think really works. And the best goalkeepers in shootouts are good at delaying and jostling and moving and staying in the in fact, that's something Mark Hickman always says: stay in the contest, stay in it, not going to ground too early, not making the mind up for the striker. And actually, the more you stay in it, the striker starts to panic and they'll do something rash. And actually, the best keepers in the world are good at that kind of killing time element.
It is interesting. I was involved with the Masters European Cup recently, and we went to a shootout. I'm a field player now, and the goalkeepers that we had were like, well, can you give us any advice? And I was like, no, never done one, not a clue. But in principle, reflecting exactly what you said, I said, well, players will come in with a plan A. They know what they want to do. And the minute they can't do plan A is the minute that the time comes into their head. And that's when you're into the error rate. Kick it, backstick it. Something then goes wrong because you're asking someone to execute more skills in that moment. So the time thing I find is a really interesting one of just stay on your feet, stay in the way. Don't overcommit and come sliding out and watch them just pull a stick back and watch you go past and then they roll it into an empty net.
Yeah.
But that goes into kind of what you talked about earlier on about goalkeeping now being far less dynamic in terms of out and around the edge of the circle, because it feels like goalkeepers are just consistently, at international level particularly, what we watch in the Pro League, etc., they're trying to just stay in the way. Now obviously the ball speed is now higher. Do you think there is more goalkeeping where the goalkeepers are getting hit by being in the right place, but it's less technical saving wise because the ball speed is so high?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the ball is hitting the goalkeeper. So a lot of that goalkeeping skill is closing down, making the right body shape, but staying in the contest and ball finds them. I think that's definitely true.
And if we look at that high level goalkeeping still, what defines or differentiates, in your opinion, now looking at the elite level, good from great or great from good?
On shootouts?
No, generally.
Yeah. So for me, a great goalkeeper can make the consistent meet, the bread and water. They're consistent with the basics, but they've got that big game mentality where they can pull big saves and big moments. Ollie Payne at his best does that for me.
Yeah.
He's consistent, doesn't give you much. If you see him make a mistake, it's a collector's item, but he's got those big moments in him as well. I think in men's hockey, if you're good at corner, if you're really, really strong at corners, that can make you a great goalkeeper. The other element is like confidence in big moments. I mentioned Pam Block again on the shootouts. He's often in control. Mm-hmm. He's almost shifting and putting that player where he wants him by either showing one side or offsetting deliberately on purpose. And we saw it with Maddie when she was playing in the Olympics, where she would come out on one side and play the mind games and alter her position. That's for me a whole new level. I think Maddie was an innovator with that kind of stuff in terms of being in control. Too many goalkeepers on shootouts, for example, they're just there watching the ball, trying to get in the way. And actually, the top level great goalkeepers can actually embrace the pressure and say, I'm going to actually take control of this situation. I'm going to force you to either go onto my stick side or I'm going to put you where I want you. And that's, for me, top goalkeeping.
Well, that goes all the way back to the first goalkeeper you mentioned with Janssen and presence. And it feels like I asked you, could you see a young goalkeeper within the first 20 minutes, which you said yes to. But from an international perspective, when the top goalkeepers, men and women, are on fire, it almost feels like they're creating this force field, and you watch on TV and go, they're in the right place at the right time every moment. It's preemptive. They're almost reading what the danger point is going to be and being there before the danger occurs.
Definitely. I think, again, it goes back to like visual triggers and cues. An OK goalkeeper will see that pass see the striker receive the ball, and then think, oh, I've got to do something. Actually, the top goalkeepers are reading the game, and as that ball's passed, they're travelling. As the player receives the ball, they're there. They've made that ground up because they're actually on the front foot and they've read that bit of play. A bit more proactive and not just reacting to the shots and balls. For me, that's great goalkeeping.
So, how does that progression occur within either Hero's philosophy or just goalkeeper training in general? The elite goalkeepers, they've played for 10 years and 1,000 matches and whatever that may be to get to that point. How do we collectively, because we as Mercian are going to work with you to create the content and put it out into the social media space to then sort of start supporting players on that journey, how do we get the youngsters to become more confident? If you have a shy and retiring young player, but they've seen Maddie, let's use Maddie just for now because of 2016, or Maz or Ollie or anybody, they've been to Lee Valley recently and they're domestic, they're English for now, although there's a global market, let's not forget that. How do we get them into that frame of mind where they become that alter ego of themselves, where they create the confidence and that mental approach?
Yeah, you see it in junior hockey, you see it probably a bit more in girls hockey than boys, but you see where there's a nice, kind, polite, gentle student, if you like, and they've got to leave that personality to one side, and when they get in the goal with a helmet on, they've got to become someone else. And I think for me, if they can do that, that's really important. You can be a top goalkeeper without being aggressive or loud or a massive personality. You can do that. It's probably just a bit harder for you. I'm coaching some goalkeepers now who are playing international junior hockey, and part of their challenge is they're technically really good, but they don't have that edge and that bite and that real desire not to let the ball in. And that's the bit that I find it's difficult to coach. You need to really want to save it at all costs, and you've got to really have that hunger and desire not to be beaten. When I see that without being told, I think that's talent, because it's the mindset of a winner, and I love that mentality in training especially. And I've always hated that kind of saying, oh, it's just training, and I think, you've got to train to play. That's a bit of an old-fashioned one, but really, good habits. And with Hero, we've now just in the last few months brought in a mindset coach who comes to all the camps. Mm-hmm. So he, Matt Buckley, he will work the pitch. So in a camp, he will speak to every goalkeeper one-to-one. He'll take you out of the goal, have a chat. How's that for you? Okay. He'll also go around the pitch, look if the goalkeeper's struggling, and pull you out, and then talk to you, get your feedback. He might even show you a video of you playing well, and later in the day, you maybe not playing so well. What are the differences? Where are those gaps? He also will do a presentation to all the goalkeepers on like a working lunch. We'll have our lunch, but he's doing a PowerPoint presentation about goalkeeping and about mindset and resetting hacks. So for me, for Hero, that's where we want to make the difference up, and it's not just about having loads of fun, making loads of saves, having a workout. We want to get the technical, we want to get the mindset, and actually, for me as well, is training at fast intensity to try to get the cognitive part of the goalkeeping really challenged. Mm-hmm. Not all goalkeepers like that, but for me, I think it's really important to do that sometimes as well. Really get the keeper buzzing. And I do believe personally, goalie training and goalie coaching are not the same. And I think if you watch some of the coaching from other countries, there's loads of kit and loads of equipment in the D. It's great, it's fun, it's a good workout. I'm not always convinced there's loads of learning in that. I like to strip it back and minimal equipment. And as I said earlier, like situations, in this situation, I'm one-on-one, for example. I'm one-on-one. I can do this, this, and this. I've got to do this and this. And it's your decision and your job almost to go and choose and make the right decision in that moment.
But within that, I hear that, and I've listened to lots of coaches in terms of mental development, etc., and decision-making, bits and pieces. But does Hero still believe in the simple repetition skill development of I can kick a ball with my left foot perfectly, and then you can go into the decision making of when to use it and that kind of thing, or is it?
Yeah, 100%. That still doesn't change for me.
Yeah.
You know, depending on, you've got to know your audience, you've got to know who you're coaching, know your goalkeepers. But there's like a foundation of things that we need, and everything else is built on top of that. If you can't kick, or you're not going to get set, or your hands are always down,
in your pocket.
you know, yeah, there's certain things you have to do. And again, that goes back to our tick box things, or we call it tick box things. So our little checklist. And as a goalie coach, you can end up saying that stuff all the time at your club. Hands up, on your toes, head forward. And I don't like to repeat it. I like to say it at the beginning and talk about the end. But actually, mid-session, you know, the goalie coach is not there next to you in the match. So if you choose not to do it, it's down to you. Be accountable. Yeah, that ball went in. Why did it go in? Oh, your hands were down. Okay, so there's got to be a little bit of self-growth and a bit of kind of independent thinking, actually, with young goalkeepers especially. I'm not saying you leave them to it, but definitely with competent teenagers, for example, there's got to be a bit of accountability where you've told them 5 times, okay, so now it's down to you. You do it.
And my value set now to try and impose upon it, the problem is, as a goalkeeper, you have to be striving for perfection, because aside from the very occasional time somebody is behind you and backs you up, you make a mistake and it's in a goal a huge percentage of the time. So there has to be that mental strength to be able to process the fact that you will fail. And that is a fact. I'm not trying to make anybody uncomfortable, and I believe in being uncomfortable in a performance environment anyway, but because of that, we have to develop this accountability and mental tenacity and resilience in order to cope with the fact that a ball's going to go in at some point. People will score good goals. I mean, you look at a goal and go, well, it's a good goal. I can't save everything.
Yep.
They have to develop that skill set in their mind and in their heart to be able to process that emotion.
I saw a podcast with Kasper Schmeichel recently. He said you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay.
I like that phrase. I've kind of nicked that. I use that a lot in my sessions, and actually, I think it's really important. The way I sell it to goalkeepers is that this is a luxury. We're here with goalkeepers, with a goalie coach. It's great. It's a great learning environment, but in a match day, I'm not here. So you have to be able to cope. You have to be able to reset your mind. If you let a goal in, maybe have a reset system, go out the goal, have something that you do, a towel, a drinks bottle, or the words on the bottle, whatever it takes, have a little reset that works for you. And again, for me, it's process. Process brings a level of consistency in whatever you do, with work, hockey, school, whatever you do. It's got to have a system to help you get back to where you want to be.
What I love about talking to you and other exponents of people who truly understand their role is that there's a depth of knowledge about what you do, and it's not a kind of a rote, we do this and then we do this and then we do this. There's a flexibility, and it comes straight out your head subconsciously. So now to put you right on the spot. So we've developed this, we use this model, Genesis Evolution Elite, because it seems to break everything down into a nice set of buckets. If you were looking at a goalkeeper and we're going, right, we're going to progress you over time, we're going to take you through that journey. Single goalkeeper, starts at the beginning, they've got some natural competence. What does that look like in your mind? What would those 3 stages of any journey be, the words that you could put around them?
Do you mean in terms of quality, in terms of session?
Just either development for you, development for the goalkeeper over time, what different skills sits at what different point in that journey, how do they build through that?
I think you have to first of all build the basics and find a fun way to doing that, because it can be a bit boring. But too many goalie coaches do stuff like from the penalty spot all the time, and in a match, very few things happen in the middle of the day. Most things come in on an angle. So for me, if I'm coaching a young goalkeeper, I'm laying the foundations, get comfortable in the kit. The best goalkeepers that I've coached are good movers and comfortable in the kit. Number 1. Number 2, getting a position and navigating the D. Okay, that's really, really important as well. Number 3, getting set for every shot. Wherever the shot's come from, get yourself set, get yourself balanced with those tick lists. Gloves up, head forward, knees bent, whatever. That's my starting position. When you do that really well consistently, we'll move on. If you can't, we're not going to move on. We're going to stick with it. And I'll find ways of doing it and make it look different and feel different. But you need those things. They're like non-negotiables. The second layer of that is adding decision making, because I think most goalkeepers will tell you that's the hardest part of goalkeeping. So we're going to add some scenarios where there are multiple outcomes or different things could happen, and you've got to choose the right one. Coming off the goal line, that's the one that a lot of young keepers find difficult, because they'll all hug the goal line generally. That can come back to where you're starting. How do you watch a game of hockey? Because young keepers, as you start, stand still near the line, or they are on the backboard, or they're leaning on their stick. So, you almost want to have... What I'd love to do, which never quite works out how to do it, is actually have a heat map for a goalkeeper. Actually show them, as the game changes and moves, the ball is played around the pitch, how the goalkeeper's position should move and vary depending on the depth and the height of the ball and the width. And that's something I would love to show goalkeepers, especially young goalkeepers. That's how you get your positioning right, because you're tracking the play. And I think that's a really hard one to get across.
How many steps you can do in any given D.
Absolutely.
That's the movement. I've probably done nothing. And you look at your watch, you go, actually, I'm 4,000 steps, I've never stopped moving. So we've gone from Genesis, we're into Evolution. Then what's that final step up into Elite?
For me, the Elite is we're going to add penalty corners. If I'm coaching, probably with a lacrosse stick or a good track flicker. I also going to add where possible. So for me, like the dream setup in a week would be a session with your team, a session with the goalkeeper, another weekday, then your match. And the Elite level is actually joining all the dots up together. So the top keepers that I coach, I will watch them play on a weekend. I'll have a one-to-one with them. And then they'll go with their coach and their club team. And often I will speak to the club coach about what that goalkeeper's doing and how they're playing. So it all dovetails together. And that's like, for me, the top level provision for a goalkeeper. Which in video is, again, it's now with iPhones and mobile, it's so easy to do. If you're coaching and you're not using an iPad or a laptop or a phone, I think have a look at yourself, because it's so easy, and kids especially are visual learners, will learn way more by watching a 10-second clip than you describing it to them.
Well, it's amazing you talk about that video and bits and pieces, because that's one of the reasons that we've chosen this collaboration between Mercian and Hero, is because of the content you already create and the content that we're going to create between us. Amazingly, that's zipped past. That's half an hour of
I could talk goalkeeping all week.
You said you were a goalie geek beforehand. Before we go, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share with the people who might listen to this?
Yeah, so I suppose with Hero Goalie, it's something I'm passionate about. We're 5 years old this year, so it was born out of COVID when we were all at home, and I sent out some emails to famous goalkeepers to get them on board. So when everyone was at home, we had people like Payman Blark and Kiko Cortez doing live calls, and then it's 5 years later, we're coaching nearly 1,000 goalkeepers a year, and over 150 goalkeepers a week in terms of getting around the country. So it's snowballed, and we are quite driven to be the best. Now, we'll never really know, but we really want to be up there in the conversation for being the best in the country for goalkeeping provision. And I think we're getting pretty close.
Well, it is obviously one of the reasons. There is the long-term relationship that you and I have had anyway, and I firmly believe in the personal approach to all of this that we do. However, from a corporate perspective with Mercian, I think the Mercian Heroes is a great fit. There's a number of collaborations that are coming. This is the second one. We did the Stickwise collaboration just a couple of weeks ago. So thanks for being part of our Mercian Academy journey. We're really looking forward to working with you. What that's going to mean is a whole load of content that comes out that Hero creates, and then we supplement with maybe a little bit of voiceover or text to add to that across the Genesis, Evolution and Elite levels of skills. So follow their platform, follow our platform as we develop over the next weeks and months and hopefully years on both of our respective journeys. But thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you very much. Real privilege.
Have a look across all the platforms, both theirs and ours, and we will bring you more chat soon.